Welcome back to Gospel Chats. I'm Marshall. This is Ryan, and we're so excited that you've decided to join us again as we discuss the gospel of Jesus Christ. Ryan, I'm going to throw it right over to you. We have some thoughts today.
We have some thoughts. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. I want to start again with an Elder Bednar-ism.
Okay.
April 2015, he gave a talk called "Therefore They Hush Their Fears."
Okay. Yep.
And he just, let me just read one paragraph and then we'll dive into our chat. Upon hearing the voice of God after partaking of the forbidden fruit, Adam and Eve hid themselves in the Garden of Eden. God called unto Adam and asked, "Where art thou?" And Adam answered, "I heard thy voice, and I was afraid." Notably, one of the first effects of the fall was for Adam and Eve to experience fear. This potent emotion is an important element of our mortal existence. That's an interesting,
I love that.
Right? I had to go back and reread it. I remember loving the talk. I've thought a lot about fear.
Yep.
We're going to talk about fear.
Good.
Let's wrestle with fear. And just his wording was interesting, that one of the first effects of the fall was for Adam and Eve to experience fear. And then just this phrase, this potent emotion is an important element of our mortal existence. Let me start with a question that sounds like a duh question, but for you and me, I don't think it's going to remain a duh question. Is fear good or bad?
No. See, I refuse to answer your question.
No, I will not answer.
Well, no, because the answer is it's neither. It's neither good nor bad. Fear is neutral. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I think that phrase, honestly, is not a typical answer.
I'm not a typical person.
That is true. In so many respects, that is true. Right? Okay, so explain your answer a little bit, because I think it's a fascinating answer. And again, I think what Elder Bednar did and didn't say in that statement is, I think, an interesting. Yeah. He doesn't go after condemning fear.
No.
He's not celebrating it either, but he just says it's an important element of our mortal experience. So you say it's neutral.
I say it's neutral because fear can be destructive. There's no doubt that fear can be destructive. It can be used against us. It can inspire us to do bad things. It can inspire us to hide from the Lord. Definitely that is a negative of fear. Fear also keeps you alive. There's a reason for fear. People without fear don't last super long in this mortal existence.
They end up jumping off something and doing bad things.
Exactly. There's a reason why fear can save your life, literally save your life, but it can also get out of control and it can control your life. And that's a problem. So that's why I say it's neutral. I think that's one of the problems that I see is we try so often to label everything as either good or bad.
Yeah.
And the neutral for me gives me the chance to say, okay, is this fear good? Is this fear bad? What is this fear trying to do in that moment? I don't know. Am I crazy? Don't answer that question.
Oh, come on. I wanted to. I just wanted to pause so I could gather my thoughts before I thought about answering it. No, I don't think you're crazy. I've had to take a couple steps backwards because I think of the youth theme this year, DNC 6:36. Look unto me in every thought, doubt not, fear not.
Yeah.
Those are strong statements from the Savior. Don't fear, fear not. And I've come down hard on doubt and fear. I've been in lessons, I've been in conversations where it's no. Stop it.
Yes.
Don't do that. And again, we'll get into a conversation, we'll keep going. There is something very detrimental about fear.
Absolutely.
Fear can go really wrong.
Yes.
It can get black and bad. But I don't think what Jesus was saying there is, don't ever feel fear.
Yes. Thank you.
Right? And I had to walk back a couple steps to open up that door, because I think sometimes we're condemning ourselves or condemning other people for feeling something that is built into my biology. It's built into my mortality. You and I are appropriately supposed to feel fear.
Yes, and it's inevitable and unavoidable.
Yeah.
there's no way to fully detach ourselves from that, and so to condemn ourselves for that is crazy. Which I've done the same way, and I've done it to myself. Thinking like fear is the antithesis of faith, and I think of the scriptures, perfect love casteth out all fear. So, well, I definitely don't have perfect love because my heart's beating way off the charts right now.
Yes, and that is the dichotomy that we put up there. Sometimes it is the antithesis of faith.
Yes.
And you and I were just talking the other day about a phrase that if we're not careful with might not be true.
Yes.
I get what we've been saying, and I've said it myself, that faith and fear cannot exist in the same person at the same time.
Yes.
Do you still believe that's true?
Well, I don't believe that's true at all.
Okay. Did you ever believe that was true?
Yes, I did, because I've heard it so many times.
Why do you not believe it's true now?
Can we go somewhere in the scriptures? Can we go to Mark chapter 5?
Okay.
Now, this is one of my favorites, and I love this, and this really sort of stuck with me when I was debating this question of faith and fear a while ago. And one of the reasons I went here is because this is actually the example that President Nelson used in challenging us all to increase our faith in Jesus Christ. He said to be like the woman with the issue of blood reaching out. And I'm like, okay, so this is the perfect example of faith that we see here. Now, you'll recall Jesus is going to the house of Jairus, and he's seen some things here, and this is when she comes forward. Now, as he does this, we have this whole thing, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we see some things happen here. We go to verse 27 of chapter 5. When she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. Now, she immediately is made whole. Jesus, of course, stops and says, "Who touched me?" And we have this whole interchange. Now, I want to go down to verse 33 because we see some words that describe this woman after she's exhibited this unbelievable faith. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, "Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace." And I love that. And I've sort of wrestled with this idea of every single thing about the story of this woman with the issue of blood points to the fact that she's terrified. She doesn't do anything that would bring attention to herself. She doesn't want to be seen. She doesn't want to be noticed. She's pushing through the crowd so she can just touch his garment, not even touch him. Everything is hide. Everything is fear. Everything is I can't be seen. I can't be noticed. To use modern lingo, everything's very high anxiety right here. Like, I'm going to make the phone call I don't want to make, and hopefully they will not answer the phone. And then I can leave the voicemail and be done. And they have this. And then even when he turns around to her, she's been healed. She knows his love. She knows his power. She has faith in it. And yet the two words that are used to describe her is fearing and trembling. And yet the word Jesus uses to describe her is faith. And so for me, I look at her, and this is a woman who is clearly filled with all manner of fear and clearly acting in faith.
Wow.
And so for me, I put that together of fear and faith can exist. It's not that they don't exist at the same time. It's that you still have to choose which one to listen to in your actions. So her feelings are very real, very valid, and it's fear. But her choice is all faith-based.
Which makes the faith even more beautiful, right? Because, so I think when the Savior says, "Fear not," I think we need to separate out fear the emotion and fear the choice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he's telling us, don't make the choice to feed into fear, to give into fear, to make choices based out of fear. But he's not saying don't experience it, and that somehow you're bad and you have no faith if you're feeling the emotion fear.
Right?
Right? Because faith, just like fear in some ways, can both be something you feel, but it's also a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that when you feel the emotion fear, can you and I still make the choice of faith in those moments?
And the answer to me 100% is yes. Can we stick in Mark 5?
Yeah.
Now remember, Jesus was going to visit Jairus at this point in time. And of course he stops and talks to this woman, and Jairus is in desperate shape, right? It's my daughter's dying. You need to come now. This is my last chance. And of course, after he's done talking to this woman, Jairus gets the message of, why trouble the master further? Your daughter is dead. And you can imagine, I love the Savior's next word to Jairus. Before Jairus can even speak, verse 36, Be not afraid, only believe. Now, I ask myself all the time, why did Jesus say that? Well, because I'm imagining he said that because Jairus in that moment is terrified. He's on a mission. He was doing this, and then it got stopped, and he's afraid. Now he's going to have to go home to his wife and tell his wife that he failed, that he tried to get Jesus, but it was too late.
He's going to have to see his lifeless daughter and deal
terrified.
with that.
Yeah.
He's terrified.
He's terrified. Be not afraid, only believe, which once again, I'm not thinking Jesus is saying, stop feeling what you're feeling. He's saying, act in a different way. Let me still come to your house.
Do the hard thing right now, which is even though it is very normal and natural and understandable and appropriate probably for you to feel terrified right now, choose to believe anyway.
Yes. And choose to act on that belief. Let me come to your house. Let me kick all the mourners out of her room. Let me go in there with just you. These are big asks, and there's going to be a lot of fear steps in there because he's going to have to go against convention. He's going to have to go against all of these things. He's a leader of the synagogue, and to let Jesus in there and to give him, levels above these people who are in the house, there's a lot of fear that he's going to have to overcome. I imagine if I'm Jairus, there's a pit in my stomach this whole walk home. There's terror this whole walk home, but I'm still choosing like, okay, you're still coming with me. Let's go. And that's, once again, it's not that your fear disappears. It's that you choose faith in spite.
I like that. Let me switch back over. I was just looking, and several different people have similar quotes, but this was from Martin Luther King Jr. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear.
I love that.
Just that, whether it's courage or faith, right? I think we could replace those, use those interchangeably. And again, I hope this is relieving. I'm feeling relieved just in the way. I think that was a beautiful place that you took as an example. And I hope anyone else listening, I think we need to de-villainize the emotion, the experience of fear, and not make it feel like it's some sinful thing or something that is the antithesis of faith, but to realize it's an emotion.
Yeah.
It's normal, it's natural, it's real, it's to be
helpful.
expected and helpful in a lot of cases. But when it does come in a situation that could keep you from exercising faith, then comes the command to fear not. Don't make a choice to feed into this fear. Still choose to believe. Still choose to move forward in whatever faith looks like at that moment.
Yes.
I think that's empowering.
I think it's so empowering. And it's empowering because now it puts us in our corner and we're not slave to our emotions anymore. And so many of us do experience fear on a very high level. Anxiety is through the roof in the world around us today. And that's a it's legitimate emotional struggle that you're having at that moment in time, but still giving yourself the power of, I can still choose to act in certain ways, even if I'm not feeling those ways.
That's good. Okay. Can we switch this a little bit and then talk about, but so now I can just recognize that emotions are normal.
Yes.
Emotions are neutral. What I then choose to do with them. So the Savior does say, fear not, right? Multiple times we are counseled to
it's
not
all over
fear.
The place.
So where do you see with our young adults, with others in your experience, where do you see, where does fear get really nasty? What are the consequences of fear? Because it can get, before you even answer that, I'll give you a...
good night. You're giving me more time to think, and I appreciate that.
You keep thinking, but here we go, 2 Timothy 1:7. God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And you get President Hinckley saying this, we need to recognize that fear comes not of God, but rather that this gnawing, destructive element comes from the adversary of truth and righteousness. That's pretty, again, I don't think he's talking about, obviously, the emotion fear.
No, he's talking about the choice.
The choice fear. So, where do you see fear getting destructive and gnawing and coming from the adversary? And can we wrestle with that element of fear?
Please. Oh, well, I'll start. I'm going to go right back to Elder Bednar where you started.
Okay.
It starts with Satan telling you to hide from God. So for me, the first step is, if I'm afraid of something that's going to make me not go to God, not coming to Christ, that is an immediate red flag fear. This is not
turned into satanic fear at that point.
Yeah, that's not a I'm trying to keep you alive fear. This is a really stupid decision fear. I'm going to use your emotion to shuttle you away from the people that could actually help your fear.
Which makes sense, right? If you're Satan, you're looking for a normal human experience,
Yep.
and to then take it for your purposes, which is he wants us to be separated from God.
Yeah.
And so the minute fear is making me want to hide from God, Satan is using that emotion against me.
Absolutely.
That's good.
So I throw it to you. Where do you see it?
Man, so many levels, because I've been thinking about it. I think at maybe a most basic level, I see it just robbing people of joy in the present because we're so worried about possible outcomes in the future.
Yep.
I watch young adults. I watch my friend Keely and others, right, and myself, because we're always like, what could happen?
Yes.
What might happen? And how will I react then if this happens? And then if I react like that, how will I mess up God's plan? Or how am I going to ruin my life if I make this choice? What if?
Yes.
And I think the fear, one of my young adults in a class said, what fear does to me is it paralyzes me.
Yes.
I am so afraid to make a choice because I don't know if it's the right choice, or I don't know what that choice is going to lead to, that I find myself not wanting to make any choices.
Yep.
And so that, I think, in just a very basic attack on agency and faith, is it causes people to not want to make choices.
Yeah. It's a very paralyzing feeling.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that. That was... Last night I was at that dating thing where I was the grumpy old troll of the panel, and that's what my wife called me in the dating panel. So,
Sue, good job.
but which I was, but a lot of those questions did revolve around that. It wasn't said explicitly, but very clearly a fear of what if I make the wrong choice? What if I choose the wrong person? What if it doesn't work out? What if they're not the one? And it was all centered around this question of fear. I'm afraid to make the wrong choice. Therefore, I'm going to sit here until the right choice is so clear that there's nothing else I can do.
It's paralyzing.
Yeah.
Paralyzing. Keely, jump in.
Yeah, I just think, thank you for calling me out.
Sorry, I do that out of love.
If it makes you feel better, Keely, I also have anxiety.
No, you're good. It's just funny because as you guys were talking, I was like, I think this episode's for me. And then I was like, oh no, just overthinking it. And then you're like, my friend Keely over here. No, it's true. Like, I feel like I do have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And like, I could see that, throughout my whole life. I'm getting better, but it is something that I think is very prevalent in my life. And right now the fear is starting a family, and I've talked to both of you about that. Like, I'm terrified not of the child is so adorable. I'm not afraid of that part. I'm afraid of the pregnancy part. So
I'm not allowed to say anything about that, actually.
I'm like after the pregnancy is when the fear of like raising the child will kick in. Yes. But I feel like with what you guys are saying, where you're saying like, what can you see is making it destructive or something that's becoming destructive out of fear? Like, I feel like my fear isn't destructive, but like you're saying, it's just stopping me. Like, I always say like, oh, if only I had more faith, I could like overcome this. And I do think that a part of me can grow in my faith and, work on that to be able to overcome this. But like right now, I'm not even trying. My fear is just, I'm scared to do this, so I'm just not going to. Yep. And I'm not going to ask God because I know his answer.
I'm afraid of his answer.
Because I know that this is one of his commandments is to have children. But it definitely is getting to a point though where it's just becoming like just sad. Yeah. Like I was talking to Michelle the other day, the other administrative assistant, and I was saying, I don't know what my purpose is right now. Like, I don't know. You have like the mission that gives you a purpose. And then, when you're going to school, your purpose is going to school. And then, when you're dating, you're trying to find a spouse. And like right now I've done all those things. And because of my fear, like I know that my purpose now should be to have a child. But because of my fear, I'm not doing that. And it's just making me sad. And so that's where like the destruction comes in, is that Satan is trying to take this fear that I have and turn it into a more depressing thing.
Yeah.
And I've never really thought of it as that being the destructive thing until now when we were talking about it.
And that's what. Thank you,
Yes,
Keely,
thank you.
for both forgiving me for throwing you under the bus and for sharing, because I feel it, I experience it, but I definitely see it really keenly among these young adults. Of fear can be a subtle thing that is not so subtle in its consequences.
Yes.
Right? Because it is so normal to feel anxious about things, and in our society, maybe more so than ever.
Yes.
That we're an anxious generation. But to have, again, to not demonize that, right? To realize, no, that's just normal. That's it. To feel things is to be human. But to watch how Satan can come in and take those feelings and to stop our progress.
Yes.
And to rob us of joy, because joy comes on the other side of making faithful choices even when you feel fear.
Yes.
That's joy. That is the experience of no, it's okay to feel it, but choose faith in spite of the fear, and then you'll get joy. And I just watch people get paralyzed from doing that.
And that paralyze is so dangerous. And so I guess the question I want to look at, if it's all right, is this question of like, how do we overcome it then? So how do we do there? And I love what Keely says, this idea, and how honest and open she was. That was so powerful. And she's like, I feel like this question of like, I'm stuck, and I couldn't help but think President Nelson's statement, you want more faith. And I remember he asked that question, and he's like, do you want more faith? And I'm like, yes. He's like, do things that require faith. I'm like, I don't like that answer.
It was the best answer. That was such a like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And his was like, yes.
Yes, exactly.
You want more faith? Do things that require faith.
And my first thought was, that's too much. Like that's a big thing. And then it sort of struck me as I sat on it, is that it doesn't have to be huge. He's just, okay, just start with, okay, you're paralyzed about this, and this. Okay, what's the next step?
What's the next thing that would take faith for you to choose it?
Yes.
Choose that.
Exactly.
Start there.
Yeah. Stupid example. Can I give a stupid?
They're my favorite when you give those, actually.
So I jokingly with Keely, I struggle with anxiety. My anxiety is pretty under control right now, but there were times in my past where it was out of control, like way, way out of control, given life circumstances and all sorts of things. And I was seeing a therapist. I was doing everything to try and get under control. And mock me if you must, but one of my hugest anxieties at this time is probably 15, 16 years ago now, was voicemail. Like voicemail at work, like threw me into an anxious fit. Like it was like I'd walk into my office and I'd see the little red dot. Oh my goodness, it's giving me flashbacks right now.
I'm so bad, because in the back of my head is like, I need to leave him like 5 voicemails today just to see how you're doing. Okay.
The best thing ever is modern phones that now transcribe it for me. So, but now it's so silly. But at the same time, it was legitimate. Like it legitimately caused me great fear.
Why?
I was afraid of what would be on there, or maybe it was, I don't even know. Everything was going wrong, and so there was like, what's going to be on the voicemail, and what if they're mad at me, and it's that every single thing that could go. It's the same thing. Like I took 5 years to figure out how to do this, and then it took me 5 minutes to actually do it once I finally. But
yeah.
But so like this, using President Nelson's example of like, okay, so what do you do? So what's the next step? And the next step was, okay, I need to check my voicemails. I need to do it. It's part of my job, which is actually one of the best things about this job is I don't get voicemails. But then it was as simple as, okay, so I set a time every single day where my alarm would go off and I would check my voicemails. And then if any other voicemails came that day, I could ignore them until the next day. And then when the alarm went off, I would check it. And it was just that I have to make a choice to do it. I just have to do it. And now, as silly as that may sound, and because it is, I mean, I should not be afraid. My biology should not be equating voicemails to being chased by a bear in the woods, but it does.
It's when the brain gets involved with the rest of the biology, and we love these brains.
They're so dumb.
I think you're on TikTok too much, because that's a trend right now. Have you been seeing that?
Keely is now throwing me under the bus for my other anxiety-inducing habits.
It says, unfortunately, my body doesn't know the difference between answering a voicemail and being chased by a bear.
That's right. Okay, so that's where it came from. So I'm not original. So, but it was, and it was a cure. I still hate it, but it's that simple cure, President Nelson. Do I want to have more faith in answering voicemails for others, is I had to take a small step. Now, what would have been better is just to answer every voicemail as it popped up, right? But I had to take a small step, had to take the first step. So you can throw that with scriptures, with gospel principles as well. Like, what is a small thing? Don't let Satan overwhelm you with fear okay, I can do a small thing. I can do a little bit of thing that will require a little bit more faith. And then I'm choosing faith, which means that I am putting it on a higher level of my consciousness than fear, because I'm actually choosing to follow this and not that.
Again, I love that, just the emphasis on the word choosing, because again, for me, the minute I know that Satan is trying to use my fear to keep me from something good, almost I take that as a challenge. Like, okay, you jerk. Right? If you're going to, then I know. But then again, I think I could be paralyzed to think, okay, I need to now feel faith in order to move forward. When you just realize that maybe that's not how it works. Yep. Maybe I just need to choose faith, even though it's going to take every bit of ounce of strength, and Jesus is going to have to give me the final ounce to actually get over the hump.
Yes.
But to say maybe that's what it looks like, is to say the very fact that I am afraid, I want to choose faith then. I don't want Satan to make choices in my life. I don't want him to use this emotion to keep me from the other side of something that might be really good, really beautiful, and really amazing that I'll never know if I don't choose faith right now.
And I love that, because I think too often I and so many others, we wait for the emotion of the spiritual rush to step in to be like, now I shall move forward.
Yeah.
When the answer is no, you have to take that step into the darkness before that happens. You have to have the faith to get the faith.
I have to choose faith before I feel faith sometimes.
Yes. And if I may, like looking at the woman and Jairus, I can't help but sometimes reading the scriptures, and I know we often do it, and it's the Arnold Freeberg idea of the Book of Mormon. Nephi's jacked and ripped, and so is Captain Moroni, and Benadiah is 70 years old and has never missed a day at the gym in his life. You know, there's all of these things, and you see them as these unbelievably strong and bold, and they are. And I can't help but wonder sometimes as I read is like, is he shaking inside? Is his voice shaking? Is he terrified as he says this? But he's saying it anyway.
That's what I love about the example you gave of the woman with the issue of blood, because I just have this new image in my mind of what faith looks like, and she's trembling and fearing and reaching. And has so much faith that she is not just healed, but made whole. And she's made whole in spite of her fearing and trembling. That's a more nuanced picture of what faith looks like.
Yeah.
It really is. Okay, you quoted a one-liner earlier.
Okay.
And we get it in a couple places. Perfect love casteth out fear, right? You quoted that. Do you remember that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and just make sure you remember that you quoted it.
I remember that, yeah.
Okay.
Moroni 8, 1 John 4.
Yes. Okay, so let's go. I want to go to the 1 John 4
All right.
version of it. Because I'm learning something, and I'm slow, but God is kind. So he is teaching me something. So I just want to share one thing for me that has helped me choose faith, believe in faith, even when I experience fear.
Okay.
That phrase has taken me down paths that I don't know were very helpful. Okay, it's good because I'm like, I've been on this journey for a long time. I want to understand how to overcome fear.
Absolutely.
And so I've studied fear before. I've taught about fear before. And this is one of the phrases that seems like it should be a go-to place to be like, okay, this is the solution.
Yeah.
This is the silver bullet.
Perfect love.
Perfect love. If you can have perfect love, it casteth out fear.
Yes.
But it's so hard. So then it's like, okay, let me summon up perfect love then. Love, love, love. Like who? I gotta love God, and I gotta love Jesus, and I gotta love who's ever in front of me. And if I can just love, 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 then this fear will go away. And I'm not saying that I think there is something about me having perfect love, but that's not the context of 1 John 4.
Thank you.
Right? And you know this already, but I have to catch up to people like you who have seen this. So it's in verse 18 that we actually get the phrase, perfect love casts out fear. But if you go back to 16, here's what John's talking about. Quote, and we have known and believed the love that God hath to us. There's the context. We're talking about the love that God has to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love. His perfect love. When I believe his perfect love for me, I'm adding my stuff here. If anyone is following along in
He
their
is not
scriptures,
quoting
like,
the scriptures
what,
anymore.
What translation is Ryan quoting there? That was me.
The
putting my
Ryan
own
Wilkins
take.
translation.
That was that we call that the RWT. Okay, had to get the right initials there. But his perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. And then, in case we missed it, verse 19, I think really makes this up. We love him because he first loved us. So here's my journey that I have tried to start both with myself and as I've tried to help other people to say, okay, no, you're experiencing fear. Welcome to mortality. Yeah. We do that. Now, you don't want to make the choice of fear. You don't want to give in to fear. You don't want to stay away from using your agency to choose faith. I think there's so much good that comes if I can believe how much God already loves me now, and that Jesus Christ's atonement and grace is infinite now. And when I realize how perfect, like that's the only real perfect love. I don't even know what perfect love means coming from me outward. I'm still trying to learn that. And mine is always imperfect love. But his love is perfect. And if I can believe that and hold on to that, then fears about all the what ifs, I don't know if they disappear, but I think that they can at least calm down enough where I can start to move forward in faith, saying, I'm not going to start to create all these what if scenarios, because God's love for me is so perfect and his son's grace is so perfect that if I will move forward in faith, they will make it amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And if we can, we put that to the context where it's said in Moroni chapter 8. This is Mormon talking about his ability to be bold. And once again, I don't think it's that he's like just such perfect love for all of those horrible Nephites at the time. It's that I have faith in charity. I have faith in Jesus Christ, his atonement. So whatever they do to me, it's going to be okay because I am filled with his love. I know his love, and it's going to be okay.
See, just bottle that. And then I'm talking to myself right now. I just need to bottle that and take that with me, because I think that's really what individuals in the scriptures, individuals in our own personal lives, in our own personal journeys, I think we know that that's true.
Absolutely.
That in those moments when we feel and experience fear, but want to make a choice of faith, I think there is something super powerful about remembering how perfect my God and my Savior love me.
Yes.
And then I can go make this choice because I know they've got me. Yes. I don't know what that means as far as like details, but I am absolutely centered and cemented on the idea, but I really do know that they've got me.
And I love that you've taken us here, because now we have our faith versus fear question again. And by taking us here, there's no such thing as faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's faith in Jesus Christ. And that's exactly where you've taken us, is this question of, okay, I am afraid, I am paralyzed, I am stuck, I am not going the right direction because of fear. What's the answer? The answer is Jesus. The answer is to turn to him, to look to him, to beg for his love to give me that, and this idea of, and John uses the phrase of coming before God with boldness, and we started with Adam and Eve and hiding, and I mean, there's not a single person who's walking into a bishop's office to confess something who is not afraid.
Yeah.
But they're still walking in, and they're doing it with boldness because of hope in Jesus Christ and faith in him. And they can do this knowing, okay, it's going to be bad. It might even be really ugly. And for some, it might be ugly enough that what they're about to reveal to their bishop might destroy their marriage and their family and everything else. But they're going to do it because of hope in Jesus Christ, and that's enough to overcome that fear. That's still going to be, their stomach's still going to be butterflies, their heart's going to be pounding, and they're going to act regardless of that.
Believing that somehow that act of faith is going to be taken by God and Jesus Christ and turned to the ultimate good.
Yeah. And if we may, perhaps this is... hopefully it comes out right. But this idea of like sometimes this question of what is faith, how is faith, and the mistaken belief that we've had, that I'm sure many others in the church have had, this idea if I'm feeling fear, I'm not having faith. Well, I'm starting to think very differently, that honestly, the more your heart is pounding, the more butterflies that are in your stomach, the more you're trembling and yet doing, that's a greater amount of faith. It's not a huge amount of faith. You're like, yeah, whatever, I'll go.
Yeah.
How much faith does it take to go to tithing settlement or tithing declaration, be like, pay my tithing? Okay, cool. Thanks, Bishop. So good. That's a lot of faith across the board, but it takes an awful lot of faith to be knees knocking and terrified of what's coming on the other side to go and say something.
That's real courage. That's a deeper level of faith.
And so this question of like, oh, I don't have a lot of faith because I was terrified. That's false. You have tons of faith because you acted even though you were terrified.
In the terror. Okay. That's good. Because again, I think I've gone about trying to deal with fear the wrong way sometimes.
Yes, me too.
My first journey with it was just to hate it and to demonize it and to think it was all just bad and from Satan, which caused me to think that I'm a bad person when I experience it, right? That I have no faith. And then even when I realized that, no, it's normal to experience it, then I thought the key, though, was perfect love, cast out fear. So I thought that my job was to like summon faith and love within myself. And again, that's a losing battle for me as a mortal. But to just feel a little bit more secure in, I need to look to Jesus. I mean, that one-liner for the youth theme, it now means a lot more to me than it ever has. Look unto me in every thought. That's super important that he puts that before. Now, doubt not, fear not.
Yes.
I know you're feeling fear. You're going to continue to feel fear. The more you feel it, like that's going to take a lot of faith in. Now, how do you get that faith? Look at me. Look unto me. Remember how much I love you perfectly. Remember that my grace can turn all of these things into beautiful things, even if they're hard and scary.
Yep.
Now step. And to watch him. I think that's what faith and fear and Jesus Christ look like, all wrapped up into one.
And I love it. And just going back to your starting point with Elder Bednar, what's the word he used? A potent force? Was that it?
Yeah, something like that.
But I think as you look at this from our conversation today, I really am coming away with not only this idea of, okay, it's not just feel one way or the other, but that it is a potent force, which means a powerful force, that fear is for our benefit, not just to keep us alive and to keep us from doing stupid things, but fear will strengthen our faith, because there is no real faith until we have to choose it in opposition to something else.
And that's when the greatest miracles happen.
Yep.
Is when I choose faith in the midst of really strong emotions of fear.
Yes.
I like it.
This is great.
I appreciate the chat.
No, thank you, Ryan.
This is good.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you again.
You're looking good today, too.
Thank
the
you.
Suspenders
So
and the bow tie.
The girl at McDonald's said so, too.
There you go.